Hey, it's me, Alyssa. Lyss or Alsira, whichever is okay. This is a very different approach. I am in my room, and I just took a shower, changed, had some lunch, and I started making like annotations and such to Milo Prather's Alterlife. If you know, Milo Prather is another name for Milo Winter, the author behind the Age of Scorpius. I'll attach 2 videos down below just to catch yourself up, or you can search it up and watch the plethora of videos out there from other creators. But yeah, my iPad is right here, charging, because I just watched 2 episodes of Supernatural. And I'll be right back when I have the entire ebook fully written out, annotated out, scratched up, everything. The whole 9 yards. Bye-bye. Hey, so I'm like halfway through Milo Prather's / Milo Winter's poetry prose collection, Alterlife. I won't even say halfway through, but I'm gonna say halfway through. And I don't, I had high hopes for this. I thought we were gonna learn something. Here's the only note I've taken. The only note I have taken. And we got so much more to get through. I'm gonna get through it as best as I can. We'll see what happens. Bye. If you see me looking down here, that's because my phone is right here. Hey everyone, it's me, Alyssa. I also go by Lyss or Alsira, whichever is okay. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a subscriber or lurker, welcome back. I didn't think I would be doing this, but this video will be regarding someone we've covered before. That is Milo Prather, another alias that Milo Winter is using for his newest collection of prose and poetry, Alterlife. Don't worry, at first I thought it said Afterlife. This collection was written by Milo and illustrated by his art director and friend, Sully Rahala. I'm using names credited in the collection. If I mispronounce Sully's last name, I apologize. I have analyzed and annotated the ebook, and before I tell you my thoughts, let me introduce myself and a few disclaimers. Like I said before, I am Alyssa. I'm 27 years old. I live in New York, born and raised. I am an indie writer with 2 self-published poetry books, Kaleidoscope and Death Rose, both available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I have a bachelor's in English, concentrated in creative writing, with a minor in film and video studies. I also have an MFA in creative writing. Additionally, I am a self-taught digital artist. Despite these degrees and accomplishments, I am not an expert on English literature, English language, the craft of writing, film productions, nor digital art itself. Opinions expressed in this video are my own. If there is any information I've neglected to talk about or gotten wrong, I will explain in a further video or comment. My comments are open to a discussion, but we are respectful, not assholes. If I see any unnecessary comments or arguing, I will be deleting those comments. This is a video of criticism, not a hate video. Some warnings: we will be talking about sexual assault, death, self-destructive behaviors, and the act of taking your own life. Anything else I've neglected to add, I will add on the screen. If you see my previous videos on Milo or the plethora of videos made on this author, and then I need not explain. However, if you're new to this topic and have no idea what's going on, let me give you a summary. Last year, in the summer of 2025, a self-published book called The Age of Scorpius was released. It received a lot of backlash, mostly due to its heavy marketing and lack of quality in the book itself. The author at the time was going by his dead name, but we're going to refer to him as Milo for the duration of the video. Milo Winter did not react to his reception well because he believed he produced a great novel. Little did he know, he didn't even look at the edits provided for him. Instead of accepting responsibility and faults, he kept throwing his editors under the bus. He even blamed another indie author who made a TikTok about the situation and the number of pre-orders Milo claims he had. Fast forward, he moves to Finland to be close with his art director Sully, transitions as a trans man, published an essay called High Disturbance, which we covered in a previous video, and now self-published Alterlife. He is still working on the second edition of The Age of Scorpius. My previous videos on Milo will be linked down below, of course. I will be analyzing Alterlife not only as a piece of literature, but also as a piece of art, since I am a digital artist. A criticism on someone's work is not criticism on that person. Remember that. There are 29 pieces in this collection. A lot of this poetry reminded me of drafts of my first poetry collection, Kaleidoscope. It was when my editor sent me back her copy that I realized poetry is not all flow and vibes. You gotta take it seriously. And punctuation is not forbidden. It's actually quite helpful, especially when you have to separate thoughts. This collection, Alterlife, is very inconsistent in terms of patterns, voice, and the way that stanzas are structured. Not only is the poetry inconsistent and lacks cohesion, but the prose doesn't help either. You would think for someone who preaches that their work has been edited that we will see polished work here. This does not look polished. This could have used a few more rounds of editing. Another rewrite. There are some positives in this one. We have motifs such as fire, wolves, apocalypse, love, heartbreak, your usual motifs. But what makes it different from the others? We have emotions and messages that are conveyed. However, the positives do not outweigh the negatives. This was not a 5 out of 5. This was at least a 2 or a 3. A lot of pieces felt recycled from each other, or they could have been merged together or expanded more. It's okay to write a poem that's more than 2 pages. Trust me, my average length of a poem is at least 4 pages. Ovid's Metamorphoses is a whole ass book. I also want to say that if you look at the playlists I have on my channel, both with my with both Kaleidoscope and Death Rose, if you see like the length of each reading, every minute is a page of dialogue. That shows you approximately how long that poem was. And you gotta ask yourself, like, does length matter or does quality matter? And does the length of the poem make the poem qualitative? Or is the quality drawn out by the length? Or limited by its length? Like I said, 29 pieces in this collection. We are not going to go through all of them. We're only going to focus on a few. Before we get into the pieces here, I do want to mention something. Pen names. Using a different name for a project is not uncommon, especially in literature. Like, I bet you didn't know that Richard Bachman is actually Stephen King. It's not uncommon. I was going to use a different name when I was self-publishing my poetry books, but then I decided not to probably because it was harder to prove to Amazon for some reason. Anyways, normally that wouldn't be a problem. However, in the case of Milo, he has gone through so many changes and aliases that it's hard to figure out what his next move is. He is not Milo Winter on this cover. He is Milo Prather. We knew him through a dead name of his. And his very first book that he's trying to revamp in some way was published under this former name. Considering the backlash and abysmal quality of his book, The Age of Scorpius, it wouldn't be surprising to say that he's trying to distance himself with Alterlife. He's constantly trying to reinvent himself through every work he is doing, trying to take another chance to make a first impression. Never take a second chance to make a first impression. The Canine and the Core. For a first poem, it did not deliver well. I do like how each stanza leads you to a single lane of traffic. Doesn't erase the fact that this feels incomplete or unpolished. We start off with the heart on fire and the speaker is targeted. Why? We don't know. It is the apocalypse as everything is burning down and the speaker is losing their memories and any hopes of love. Evergreen Mother, I thought this was Earth since we see an illustration of Earth melting into a pool below. But its neighbor? Who is that? The moon? Or Mars? Venus? A little specificity would be nice. We began this disturbance long ago. Starting to see a pattern from a certain essay. Also, this reminded me of my poem that I wrote. It was Earth is Dying, and another one is Where the Lost Lived. Those are my poems from Kaleidoscope. Besides that, it reads that humans started destruction of their own planet long ago. We didn't start the fire. It was always burning. It was only meant to be a dying fire. What does that mean? Only meant to be a dying fire. If Evergreen Mother is referring to Mother Nature, then who is Mother Nature? This should have been more extended. A little more punctuation would have been great too. Reminds me of poems I wrote for Kaleidoscope where it has stanzas like these. At least mine made sense, because I edited and rewrote it and all that. I'm not saying this sounds like I'm better than Milo, I'm saying that I've taken steps to improve myself. I feel there should be a question mark here on the final stanza. I mean, we are asking a question. Let's look at the title. The Canine and the Core. Does this mean the speaker is a canine on the run in the middle of a global catastrophe? What's happening? I hope Milo does a poem-by-poem analysis for this. And I don't really have a high hope if he ever does make that video. Or piece, whatever. Wolf Walker. There is a mix of poetry and prose. It could be argued that is prose poetry. Yes, that exists. We still remember you to make do. If you know, you know. Wolf Walker reminded me of that scene from Fantastic Mr. Fox, where Mr. Fox and the boys turn and see a wolf in the distance. The wolf is very wild. He has no clothes, nor does he stand upright like our Mr. Fox here. Yet they both feel a connection to each other. Mr. Fox raises his fist, and the wolf raises his as well. As an audience, we kind of get this because they are both predators in the animal kingdom, and they're also each other's enemies. They're both like fighting to save their own, home and everything, just in different ways. Now imagine if Mr. Fox were a human and he was meeting a wolf. Would the same connection be there? Well, that's what Milo wrote here beneath the hot Wyoming sun. First off, I'm getting a little pissed off at how semicolons are being misused. Intro paragraph felt like a runoff to me. Versions of myself left to the lands. Is he saying that this place is a graveyard to him? That he's made so many mistakes that he can't help but bury a part of himself there. He's haunted by his own mistakes. We are in Yellowstone, where there are petrified trees and sulfuric slopes. I believe this calls to wildfires and the lack of protection the national parks are receiving due to firings and lack of funding. If you thought massive cuts were going to help you, then you weren't paying attention. Like I said, a little more specificity. Especially since this is a prose. Here we see the speaker feels more connected with nature, and how nature is being treated also affects their well-being. We get to the Fantastic Mr. Fox scene, and though I like it, either I'm confused. This I realize is my survival, my breath of life on the verge of death. Lone wolf tendencies do not serve my instinctual heart. It is the start of many, many motifs throughout this collection. Does the speaker wish to be as free as the wolf, coexisting with the civilized yet destructive human? What is the message here? We coexist in nature in different ways? Then we get to the Yellowstone River, which I love the personification here. I'm using some of this in my upcoming collection. The speaker describes the river as teaching him lessons on overcoming fears of disasters as well as love. Metaphorically, this could mean that the speaker interprets overcoming their fear with adapting to change, no matter how drastic or abrupt. I would love to see this idea explored. It could have been expanded a lot more. Remember, short is not always sweet. Ghost. Going all lowercase, except for I. This reads like rebirth, with being a companion to a ghost of a woman's womb. This whole poem confused me more than the other. I wish Milo had given himself more time with this, because this could have been a much better poem. Reading back, Ghost of a Woman's Womb sounds like an abortion or miscarriage. I'm not sure if that was the intention here. Hopefully Milo gives us a little more explanation, but I don't have high hopes on that one. There was a line I want to point out, and it occurs over and over and over again. Death will not take me. Honey, you can't fight death. If death takes you, death takes you. It's ironic that this line is in a poem titled Ghost. You're dead if you're a ghost. The third stanza, ethereal earthen companion to the ghost of a mother's womb, sewn together by two parts. What the fuck are we talking about? This is so incomplete and my brain does not want to go further. We're moving on. Hellhound's Ma. Is this some kind of werewolf love story or something else? The speaker is a wolf, carnivorous, hunting for the next kill. Ma is a jaw or a throat. We can gather that this is about the jaw of a wolf or the throat of another. The speaker is frightening and seeks demon-born blood. Did Milo watch Supernatural? The speaker is lunging at his throat, scraping his chest, tearing at his flesh, and we gotta ask, who is he? I sound like Bogdan when he was reacting to Poppy's album Negative Spaces. Sweet blood tainted with justice. Is this a revenge poem? What are we avenging? Milo has spoken about past traumas. The placement of stanzas on the next page threw me off because I felt like we reached a good ending with to stop it. The speaker's victim seems to fight back, carving scars on her breast. This poem could be read in a few ways, like a werewolf love story, a revenge poem, or cannibalism being a sign of all-consuming love. Who knows? I will say that reading back this poem again and reviewing the footage, it reads like the speaker is fighting back a past trauma they had, the subject of a trauma they had, and when that subject fights back, makes them feel uncomfortable, the speaker feel uncomfortable, that's when like the dream stops and reality sets in. And it's a kind of vulnerability that is like hard to describe or even touch because it's such like a sensitive part of that memory. Rinse and repeat. This is where things get uncomfortably real, and if this was based on true events, Milo, I'm sorry this happened to you. It's Halloween! Let's have a party. This speaker is very meticulous about this, having a costume just ready for the occasion. Or it could be seen as a mask to hide their true emotions. It happens. Black veil, red lipstick, corset, accentuating the femininity and femme fatale. He also invited someone to the party. A date. Someone they had a couple dates with. We immediately see red flags and see our speaker in fight or flight mode. There are 4 F's referring to trauma responses. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. When our speaker is groped by someone, they flee to the bathroom with their roommate. It's violating. I am a time traveler. This sounds like escaping from the moment because it made them feel that uncomfortable. They feel guilty for ending the party because That one person ruined it and was not our speaker. Yet our speaker feels the guilt. The theme of conflict and the motif of shadows and fire, this all makes sense when it's tied to an event, to a series of traumatic events such as this one. We even see when the speaker said, "It must be my PTSD." So this wasn't their first traumatic event. And whether or not the person knew that this wasn't their first traumatic, their first assault or anything, that would have been, devastating. If that person knew and still did what he did. I relate to this as someone who has childhood trauma and recently learned that they were sexually assaulted as well. It's insane how normalized sexual assault has become. Even fighting against it feels like crying wolf. No pun intended. The episode. It's no question why this poem is structured the way it is, but it gets confusing when you go down the line. It depends on how you look at it. The speaker is recounting their assault and their ex, and how it affects their trust of men. There's also confusion where they are. This structure reminds me a lot of how I wrote Glitch, and that was more of a nightmare between three voices, the center being the brain trying to get everything under control. One of my favorite poems I wrote. On the second page of the episode, we are giving dialogue by a male character. Do we know if it's the ex or the nurse, or if the speaker is hallucinating them to be both? There's blue scrubs. What if the ex is a nurse? Or if the nurse is imposed with the ex's face on it? I know this is difficult to write, but this is still a piece of writing. You need to edit it. Don't leave out anything vague. Now we're done with now that we're done with specific poems, I'm gonna focus on series. I think we noticed that there's not only one series, but at least 3 series of poems in this collection. Scarification and Stratification may look like a duo, though I don't really see a connection between them other than being nature related. However, Lake of Lost Love and Desert Ramblings, which the first word was omitted from the table of contents, be careful about that. That happened with me in my first collection called Kaleidoscope for almost a year. Eternal Sleep wasn't in the table of contents, but it was in the book itself. They start out very similarly, lake and desert, and these books speak of the past coming back to haunt them in different ways. And Lake of Lost Love, enchantment is used to evoke emotion, give a little anticipation. The speaker is on a journey and their feet is killing them. Here we see the speaker connect themselves more to nature. In Desert Ramblings, there's an urge for water, a need for water, yet they don't want water. Motionless in the quicksand I created. Is Milo admitting to his faults here? If so, which faults? He's certainly admitted in high disturbance, yet he still threw more people under the bus, but whatever. And the final stanza of Desert Ramblings, I have it as DR in this case, and before that, DR used to always remain death rows, so almost read it as death rows. But in the final stanza of Desert Ramblings, the speaker wants to do this journey alone to prove to themselves that they can do it. They have the spirit and strength. That's easier said than done. You still need a team. You still need water, dude. Misty, Flurry. There exists a cure to what? You see, I'm taking every piece as their own, and I try to do that with my own poetry. If I'm writing a series of them, how do they stand on their own? Misty, Flurry is just how many words could I use from the thesaurus? Remember that episode of Friends where Joey was writing a speech and he used a thesaurus? This is what that felt like. It's fucking hilarious. You don't need to prove or impress us with what big words you know. You mention a fog blanketing the trees of the valley. Then we don't need to know that the path is hidden by the haze. It's redundant. I do like the final line, I have learned to love what I will lose. Flurry confused me. It's a changing of season from winter to spring. Time will nourish my roots. Well, it's gonna take more than that. Letting go with ease is my libation. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but isn't that supposed to say liberation? That's freedom. Libation is pouring out a drink as an offering to a deity. Are we offering our deity or letting go with ease? It doesn't make sense. It could be a typo, it could not be a typo. Who knows? Excoriation and Thanatophobia could have been one poem. That's all I'll say. And have more editing. The Musings of Christmas. These poems take place after the assault our speaker has experienced, and I like the series. Past and present felt the same, and the whole switch up with future really threw me off. Then again, in the story of the Christmas Carol and other adaptations, I'm gonna wait for that plane to get over my house. God, I love living next to an airport. At night, you can also hear them taking off. That's so funny. That's so funny. The Ghost of Christmas Future was always different from the other two ghosts. It really took like a horror aspect. And again, we see this line, I will not lose my war to death scraps. Now, I don't think we're talking about the Reaper and natural death. I think the death in this collection is self-death. The act of taking your own life. Suicide. I think that's what we're talking about here. Milo writes each piece as if tomorrow tonight will be his last. I understand this is a response to the trauma he's experienced in the past. Trust me, it's not easy being a teenager or someone in their early 20s trying to process what happened to you as a child. Yet I learned to adapt with it. Not everyone is able to do that, and it was not easy for me. That's why I turned to writing and art. There's nothing I could do to rewrite it, no matter how many times my brain tries to comfort me. Nobody is immune from danger. It's how you adapt to that danger and deal with the aftermath. Getting back to the series in this collection, I would have liked it if they were more spread out through the collection, not just like next to each other. I'm thinking back to when I was writing Death Rows and I had the Dark Art series, and even though there was only 2 of them, they were spread far apart from each other in terms of content and placement. I'm not saying Milo should do the same, as it is his collection. He can do what he wants with it, including giving himself more time and energy, because it's all read like a first draft. According to the author's note, this collection began when he was a high school senior. He was around 17 or 18. It grew to 40,000 words project. He has recorded his journeys for the past 5 years and found the intersectionality between nature, emotion, and memory. Some poems were written when he was in Kansas, Colorado, Alaska, Yellowstone, Finland, and Norway from the ages of 18 to 23. I gotta say, this is a lot for a young person to go through. I had a hard time enough trying to relax in one country before I gotta move to the next. And I'm talking about the European vacations my parents and I would take. This is an author's note, so it's taken differently than the rest of his works in the collection. That's okay, I usually don't edit my D-reader sections in my books anyways. However, it proves that Milo still tries to prove that he's a better writer by making these run-on sentences or adding one too many synonyms that you don't even know what he's talking about. I'm not an English professor. I just have a master's and bachelor's in creative writing, so I feel a bit dumb to even criticize this until I see someone who's accredited say, yeah, this sucks. Also, he mentions Kansas, Colorado, Alaska, Finland, Wyoming, and Norway. Where did Alabama come from? Was that a mistake, or was he really in Alabama one time? And he forgot to tell us about that. I am trying to stay on topic. The theme of death is so prevalent that I hope Milo finds some comfort and light in himself. I hope that he just lets go of everything that's hurting him. He can't beat the horse anymore. It's dead. When I was writing Kaleidoscope and Death Rows, I wrote my pain into these poems. I wanted the reader to feel as hurt as I was, and I wanted the people that hurt me to suffer greatly. At the end of the day, I'm really hurting myself when I continue to write the worst of the worst and not let myself breathe. I gotta take a step back and see the forest for the trees. Yeah, people who hurt me may never see the justice. But what about me? How do I heal myself when the world keeps turning? I feel for Milo. But there was a limit because he can't keep airing out his mental health and his trauma the way he did and keeps guilt tripping his audience. He has to let some part of himself go in order to continue. He even says this in his poetry, and I would even think he's taking his own advice. Like, when he was looking back at these poems, did he ever think, like, hey, maybe I'm still back on the same roller coaster, and that's okay. Progress is not linear. Change doesn't happen overnight. Let me get into the illustrations a bit. I do like them. They complement the theme. My favorites are the Kina and the Core, El Hazma, Tundra Aura. I also like the Phoenix at the beginning. You can tell that Sully really took their time with this, unlike the author in his writing. I do like the writing beneath the illustrations. It gives a more personal touch to this, a little more antique, so to speak. You can tell how personal this project was to Milo and how much it meant for him to have this published. That being said, I wish it was a better product. I sincerely hope Milo takes his time and energy wisely on his second edition of The Age of Scorpius. But from reading his collection and his essay, I just don't have a lot of hope. I just don't. It's lost somewhere in the cosmos. I hope for a very long time this will be the final Milo Winter video I make. I have more videos in the making, some of them pertaining to my own writing and journey with my first novel and my third poetry book. If you reached this far, please add a fruit emoji in the comments down below. Remember, a fruit emoji. Like an apple, a banana, blueberries, whatever. All my links are in my link tree in the description down below. If there's a topic you'd like me to talk about, just let me know in the comments. I do reserve the right now to talk about a topic. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Buy my books, Consolidate Scope, and Death Row via Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Make sure to hydrate and be safe. Bye!